Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fit Chicks Chat. I'm Amanda Quinn.
And I'm Laura Jackson. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I was like, where is my microphone? There it is.
Hey guys, so on today's episode, we are talking about how to perfect the push-up. I love talking about this because push-ups are one of my favorite, like my secret favorite moves. I know that like a lot of people don't like them, and I think that one of the reasons why a lot of people dislike them is because they're not doing them properly, and they're actually harder if you're doing them incorrectly. So I want to dive in and give you guys some tips on how you can perfect it in the best way possible, and maybe identify some areas that maybe you're doing it incorrectly so that you can kind of correct it as you go. Laura, do you love push-ups?
I have a love-hate relationship with them. No, because they're hard, right?
They're hard. Yeah. No, granted, they're always hard, no matter what.
Completely. And I love them because to me, they're like the perfect body weight, upper body exercise, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't need any equipment. It works your chest, it works your shoulders, it works your triceps. You're hitting all of and your core. So it's one of those things you can do it anywhere. You can do it on the floor, you can do it on walls, you can do it in parks. So that's why I love it. But for me, because I have long arms, like I'm 5'10" and I have these long spindly arms, which take a long time to gain muscle on. For me, it's always harder because I have so much further weight to push. Like I see short girls and they're just boop, 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 doing their push-ups. And for me, because I've got these long levers, any type of push-up or chin-up or things like that are a lot harder for me. So yeah. I love
no, and that does make sense. But definitely, I think, regardless of the length of the lever, they're still going to be hard.
Those long levers.
Yeah, regardless of the length of the lever. But so I want to talk to you guys because I think that this is one area that I see a lot of people struggling with push-ups is that they'll be like, okay, I'm doing them and I'm not progressing, or I can't do them, or I don't even know what I'm doing wrong, but they're really awkward, or like I feel like I'm not even making any kind of you start feeling the pain maybe in your shoulders, not in your chest, like you start feeling it in your lower back. So if you're listening and those are kind of the things that you're feeling when you do push-ups, you're feeling it more in your lower back than you are feeling it anywhere else, then you definitely have to listen up and follow some of these tips. And as I'm going through these tips, I want you to also think about when you go to put these into practice, my recommendation is to actually do this in front of a mirror. So if you have a full length mirror, or if you're at a gym or whatever, they have mirrors, go and actually practice sideways in front of the mirror, practice your positioning so that you can actually see, do one the way that you normally would, and then just try to have a look or film yourself doing it. Because oftentimes we have no idea what it is that we're doing wrong. And more times than not, especially with push-ups, same with planks, we end up having our butts really high in the air. And we have a sagging belly and all these kinds of things. So it's really important for you to know, to actually visually see what it is that you're maybe doing wrong so that you can correct it. But if you follow these steps, it will also help you correct or at least figure out. And then when you start feeling it in your body, it'll feel really different. So okay, so what are the 4 best tips on how you can start perfecting your push-up? So tip number 1 is all about mastering the correct elbow position and pulling your shoulders away from your ears. So more times than not with push-ups, we see people, and I gotta make sure you can see me on camera, but you see people with their elbow positioning, they'll be way out here. You can't even see me in the camera right now. My arms are so wide that you can't even catch me in my camera.
They're over here.
Yeah, they're wider than shoulder distance. Okay, so if your hands are wider than shoulder distance, that is not the correct position. The correct position is actually supposed to be a 45-degree angle with your elbows. So it's actually a little bit tighter in towards your rib cage. I always try to think it's my hands are basically right below my shoulders. So they're right below or a little bit inwards towards my chest. If you're out further, you're going to be engaging a lot more of your shoulders and your upper back. You're not necessarily going to be using just your chest area, right? And so really what you want to be doing with a push-up is using a lot of your chest and a lot of your triceps, so the backs of your arms. So by keeping your arms in a little bit tighter, you're going to be using those muscles and engaging them better. The other thing that we see often is people with their shoulders by their ears. Okay, so more times than not, people walk around like that anyways, all day, every day. They are just that's where a lot of people carry tension and stress is shoulders by your ears. But when you do that, you actually limit your mobility. So what you need to do is, I always do this before any of my drills, like when I'm teaching classes or even when I'm doing my own practice. I always roll my shoulders up by my ears as high as I can and then pull them back, like actually activate my shoulder blades and physically pull them back and squeeze them tight so that I know that they're fully engaged and they're pulled down away from my ears. There's more space now between my ears and my shoulders, and then go into position. And by doing that, it'll help you start actually engaging in those muscles a little bit better, rather than working your traps, having your shoulders way up by your ears, and then you'll start feeling a lot of tension in your neck, in your shoulders, and that kind of thing. So that is really like the number one thing that you need to do. So it's like, look at your positioning of your elbows. You want to, again, make sure it's a 45-degree angle from your ribs. And if your elbows are flaring out, you want to just keep pulling them back in. And it's going to take practice. It's going to take time, because that's actually like pulling your elbows in towards your rib cage area. It takes a lot more strength than just having them way out wide. So just continue to kind of practice and pull them in.
Well, and the one thing I just want to say too is, even with this stuff, it's like, this is the foundation, right?
Yeah.
Like, there are different variations of a push-up, but they're
Yeah.
not a real push-up. So there are some people who do really wide. There's some people who do side-to-side push-ups, or,
Yeah.
you know, tricep push-ups. But this, we're talking about the foundation of a push-up. So if you're suddenly thinking, well, that's a bad exercise. No, we're not saying that. We're just saying they're variations
of course. Yeah. But for the fundamental, like the standard push-up, it should be a 45-degree angle from your ribs, 100%. Now, the second thing that we often see, and that will probably cause you that lower back pain, is not engaging through your core. So, and I know that I was guilty of this before. In understanding the connection of engaging your core actually takes a lot of practice, I found, for me, to really feel it in your body. Like, because a lot of times you'll hear people, especially instructors, you'll hear instructors say to you, like, engage through your core, and you're kind of like, what does that mean? Or you'll be like, I am, and I'm kind of like squeezing in. But when you're squeezing in your belly button to your spine, you're engaging your core. But really what you want to actually think about is, think about like your ribs touching your hips. So it's almost like you're doing like a mini crunch while you're actually doing the push-up. And when you do that and you pull everything in tighter, you'll actually keep that engagement 100%, and it'll take any pressure out of your lower back.
Well, and the one way that I always find too that's best, and I do this with any of my setups for an exercise, squats, deadlifts, push-ups, anything, I always like do a big inhale, like while I'm in my starting position, whatever it is. So if I'm in the plank position, so before I even start my push-ups, I do a big inhale and I exhale and set my core before I do anything else. So it's almost like doing like a quick setup, but that is just my one breath where I'm like, okay, boom, boom, set the core, make sure my shoulders are in line, and then I go.
Exactly. Yeah. And you could totally use this setup, like you were saying, for any exercise, and you should, because by engaging your core, you will take any pressure out of your lower back, and you'll potentially prevent any possible injuries, but especially when it comes to push-ups and planks.
Oh, completely. Because I remember, even for me, you know, I was doing so much weightlifting, but I wasn't really doing any core work, because core work is kind of tied into other exercises, right? So even with push-ups, you're essentially,
it's like total body, essentially. Yeah,
exactly. And what I was finding, but this was with squats, but it could be with push-ups, was that because I wasn't taking that moment to mentally connect and engage my core, I was just thinking, okay, I'm just going to suck in my stomach or whatever as I do this.
Yeah.
What I found was I was starting to really put a lot of pressure on my back, and I was over time, I was really, really feeling that. So when I made this slight shift, it literally transformed the way that I was working out, because it's seriously, like, when you're putting any type of strain on your back, you can do a lot of damage.
Of course.
Quickly. And if anyone has had any back issues or thrown their back out, you've had back issues.
I have. Yeah.
You know how it's like that one little tweak and you're out of commission for a period of time. So don't skip the engaging the core step. It's so important to your back.
Yeah. So the best way is, there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. You can do it like what Laura was saying, where you can actually just do that inhale and then do a big exhale. Just so everyone knows too, in the video, you're not drinking wine right now. You're actually just drinking water out of a wine glass.
I'm just drinking out of my fancy
fancy. Just in case anyone's like, oh, she's like, Hoda.
It's actually straight vodka. No.
Yeah. So going back to the positioning though, so you could do what Laura was mentioning, where you do that set sort of breath. The second option that you could do is you could take your thumbs and put them on your ribs, and then you take your fingers and put them on your hips, and literally like it's almost like you're squeezing your hands together, like pull it so that you physically feel your body engage. And if you really can't figure that part out, if you can't figure out like not letting your ribs flare out, because that's the other thing too, is like oftentimes we like expand our ribs and you should actually be pulling them in, right?
Yeah.
So if you can't figure out that position right away though, because it's, you know, it's just not working for you, the other thing you can do literally is just squeeze your butt. So when you squeeze your butt cheeks, it usually forces your pelvis into that position anyways. So as soon as you squeeze and tighten, you'll actually feel that engagement. So like I just did it right now as we're talking.
Me
And
too.
like, yeah. So anyone listening, you're probably doing it.
Together.
But as soon as you squeeze your butt cheeks, you actually feel that internal engagement that happens, right? So that could be your starting place too. So if you can't figure out the rib to hip thing, then just start with the butt squeezing to at least start getting that engagement. Because what you want to avoid in a push-up is having the belly sagging down so that the belly is literally touching the ground before anything else, because that's going to put that C curve in your lower back, and that's what's going to cause a ton of pain and anguish,
Yeah.
and it's going to make it that much harder because you're not going to want to finish your sets or your reps when your lower back is screaming at you, right? So you've got to engage.
And that's
also, you want to get more bang for your buck.
Well, yeah, and that's where for me too, when with a lot of my clients, a lot of my chicks when I was teaching, was that, you know, they would try to jump right into it because there's always this idea, right, with exercise, like you feel like, oh, if I can't do something, I'm not good enough or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When in all reality, you do not want to get injured because then you're not going to be able to do anything. So I always even just get people starting against the wall. If I see them doing really improper form, just to get used to doing it against the wall for the motion, but also for that core strength and for that and that alignment.
For sure. And later on, we're actually going to talk about a couple different progressions and a couple different ways that you can actually start and as well as progress through it. So, but I agree.
But it's very hard, I find, to be able to feel like, because we do have different body parts that are dominant, right? Like for me, even in my lower body, I'm more quad dominant. My glutes do not want to engage. They're like sleeping.
Yeah, me too.
Because I don't have as many of those muscle fibers in my butt. It's just, I don't naturally have them. Where some people, you know, when you're already looking at people who have that nice curved booty, you're like, what the heck? They do like 10 squats and they suddenly have this great butt. Well, they have more muscle fibers. So for me, my glutes do not want to engage. So even for doing this exercise that Amanda was just saying, to start to think about your core, to even consciously start to also activate my glutes is amazing too, because of course they are part of that push-up. So if you feel like this is really difficult, you're not alone. It's totally normal. It's difficult for a lot of us, but through that practice, you will start to get that. It's all about that mind muscle connection. And then your body will learn, and your body will be like, oh wait, we're going to push-up position. Fire the glutes, fire the core. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
So it will happen.
Exactly. Now, sticking with the same sort of, I guess, in terms of like setup, the third thing in order to help you perfect a push-up is to drop that booty. So we were talking about it a little bit earlier when we were saying like the TP bum. And the TP bum for us is like when you have it, like literally it's like your whole bum, like almost like a downward dog position. And there is push-ups, like Laura was saying, there are certain styles of push-ups that actually start in that downward dog position, like dive bombers and things like that. But that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is like the fundamental, the standard sort of push-up. Yeah. And in that format, it is essentially what you're trying to do. It's like you are doing a moving plank, right? So it should resemble that same position. So a plank position is that your whole posterior chain is completely, basically flat, right? And you have your abs engaged and everything else, but your bum, your hips are in line. So there's nothing peeking up. And so you have to do that. Yeah, no TP.
I used to go through my classes and just like hit their butts. I'd be like,
yeah.
This is not a Me Too moment, but I like literally would just like hit their bums because I'm like, because it's almost too like you start to focus so much on the pushing motion, you don't realize your butt's getting up in the air. And also it's easier when your butt is up in the air. So,
yeah. I was going to say, oftentimes that starts happening, even if you start with great form, oftentimes as you're getting tired, your hips will start elevating. Yeah, because you're like, it's getting more difficult. So that allows it to make it a little bit easier, right? And so you have to keep that engagement through your posterior chain as well. So the best thing, my tip for you for that is when you're in push-up position, whether you are on your toes or on your knees, it doesn't matter. I want you to like basically try dropping your hips. Just mindfully be aware and drop them 2 to 3 inches right away. Because oftentimes we are already up a little bit further than we should be. And if that doesn't feel good for you, then walk your hands forward, maybe 1 or 2 hand distances ahead. Because oftentimes too, our hands and our knees or our feet are too close together, and that's what's causing that position. So you want to just look at, are your hands aligned right underneath your shoulders? If not, if they're like right by your ribs, that's like a chaturanga push-up, like in yoga, but that's not the standard push-up that we're talking about, right? So right underneath your shoulders, or are your knees in so close that you now are like in a tabletop position, which is what I see oftentimes with a lot of clients, especially when they're starting out, is that they actually start like in a tabletop position and then they just move their arms. So their whole body is not actually moving with the motion. And that is a good starting place if you're really just starting out, but you definitely want to start progressing where you just keep your hands in place, move your knees back a little bit further so that you eventually get into that plank position, so that you're actually moving your entire body weight as opposed to just moving through your arms. Because just moving through your arms is just going to get you, I guess, familiar with the motion, and it's going to give you some mobility, but it's not going to build that strength and build the progressions that you're looking for.
Well, and I also find that you just end up, then you start to pick up bad habits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like push-ups are going to be hard. Like that's the thing. We all just have to understand that. But the thing that's cool too, though, even though they're hard, we're going to talk about progression next. You can build up that strength quickly. But like anything, if you start with bad habits, you're going to keep going to those bad habits. So it's better to start off at a way lower level, like on the wall, and build up to those like down on the floor on your knees, on your toes, whatever.
Exactly. Because the truth is, bad form will not get you results.
No.
It won't. It won't get you the results that you're looking for. So if you're doing this work and if you're doing these and they're hard, why do you want, like, you want to do them properly, so at least you're getting the results for the work, right? Like you want to get the results for the output that you're putting out there, like rather than just being like, okay, I'm going to do them halfway. And then if I'm doing them halfway, then I'm still not getting results. So then it's kind of like, well, you're putting in all this effort for nothing. That's how I always think of it. I'm like, man, if I'm going to work this hard, I want to get results for it.
Yeah. Or you're building up another muscle that you're not trying to focus on.
Yeah. Like your traps.
Exactly. So next thing you know, and then you've got shoulder issues because you're all crunched up because you're holding towards your ears. So it's like, take that step back. And I think that's one of the hardest things when it comes to fitness, is just admitting that, like, even for me, I've been lifting weights and working out for how many years? And I literally just the other day went back to super light weights on my deadlifts because I found myself getting into, I was lifting heavy and I was relying too much on my back. And I, like, after even a couple, and I'm like, okay, take a step back. So I'm back to like way lighter, like half my weight probably, because I'm trying to build a really strong foundation again and activate the muscles I want to activate, as opposed to just doing the exercise.
Right. Yeah.
It's so easy to get into that.
Yeah. It's like anything. You don't want to just power through it just to get it done. You're there for a purpose. So get it done for that purpose. So the purpose of push-ups is to build that strength and to build mobility and to build total body strength, because it is a total body movement. So make sure that you're engaging the total body and make sure that you're doing it with proper form so that you're actually getting the results that
and when
hard work is paying off.
Yeah. Like when I went back to the lighter weights, because I was using the exact muscles that I wanted to use, I was so sore.
I was going to say,
that made me happy though, because I was like, okay, I literally am
sore in the right places.
I'm sore in the right places. I'm working the right muscles. I'm not just like relying on my bigger, stronger muscles that always do all the work, or overextending muscles that I shouldn't be. So
yeah, no, 100%. It's so important that you're engaging through the right muscle groups. Now, when we were talking earlier, we were talking about progressions. So Laura, you mentioned the one progression, like the begin, I guess it's like the place where you could begin. Like if you're just starting out and push-ups are brand new to you, or if you want to take a step back like Laura did and just be like, okay, I need to reevaluate this because this is not, I'm feeling it in my shoulders and in my lower back, but I'm not really feeling it anywhere else. You might want to just take a step back. And one of the best ways, and I think a lot of trainers miss this too. A lot of times people think that the level one or the starting sort of option for push-ups is on the knees. And I actually think, and I know you do too, that it's actually against the wall, because getting that foundation and understanding the movement and feeling that mobility is so key. And doing it against the wall will take a lot of the resistance out. It'll take a lot of the weight out of it. So it becomes more about the actual movement and feeling your joints actually move. So you feel it in your body, because when you feel it in your body, you understand it better. And so doing it against the wall, I think, is one of the key things. It's also really good for anyone who is recovering from any injuries or has any potential injuries, for them to be able to still do weight bearing without having to do it a full load of weight bearing.
Well, and one thing that I found too is that with a lot of clients who've had knee issues, they can't go down on their knees.
Yeah.
I've literally just kept them on the wall and utilized, even to progress them, utilizing bands as resistance. So even if you are somebody who's more advanced, the wall is not a level 1. You can make that into a level 3 by adding things like resistance. So don't feel like, if you're like, okay, I can only do it on the wall. Also, I've had clients that have really bad wrist issues, and going down in that, it doesn't work for them. So
exactly,
you can always keep doing your push-ups on the wall and adding, you can get resistance bands up to like 200 pounds where you're pushing against them. So there's a lot of options for that.
I agree. 100%. So that's a really good, useful tool for anyone listening who is like, I'm either just starting out or I'm working with a client who is just starting out. Against the wall, and then using progressions that way is a really great option. Basically what we want to say is, like, don't feel like knee or toes is the only option to build strength, because it's not. The other option is you can do a top-down push-up. So that's where so if you're looking to start progressing your push-ups, so now that you've got the foundation built, right? Like, you were like, okay, I've got this foundation built, but I want to start progressing it so that I can maybe build my endurance, build my strength, build my mobility. How do I do that without just adding on more and more reps? So you could do top down. So top down means that and I like these a lot. You start at the top, so regular plank position at the top position, and then you go down in a slow controlled movement and you hold. I like holding for 3 seconds at the lowest point, so at that 45-degree angle, and then pushing back up, and then going back down again, nice and slow and controlled, hold for 3 seconds, and then push back up. By doing that, you're gonna gas out your muscles pretty quickly. It's a really challenging move, but it's a really great way to start building that progression and that control in your muscles, so that you're not just kind of moving through the motions super fast.
Yeah.
The other one is the bottom up. So exactly similar to the top down.
I love the bottom up.
Yeah, so from the bottom up is essentially that you're starting at the bottom and then you're pushing up to the top, holding at the top. I find the bottom up one is, for me personally, for my body, the bottoms up are a little bit easier for me, because it's like you're pushing up and you're holding at the top position, and I'm stronger in the top position than I am holding low, but that's just me. But it's just a different way. It's the same movement, but it's just flipping it. Then you also have negatives and positives. Negatives is when you actually go all the way down to the floor. And then the positives is when you come from the floor all the way up. So you actually start laying on the floor completely flat, and you actually, or they're also known as military presses, right? So
we also call them, in FitChicks, we call them reverse push-ups.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different names for these things.
Yeah, that's why I was saying it's like,
yeah. There are a lot of different things. You're like, wait, what? I thought that was this. There's a lot of different names for a lot of different things, especially.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's kind of like, if you think about, regardless of the name, those are kind of the way that you can really progress your push-up without any equipment, is going top down. So I'm going to go down, I'm going to hold it for a 3-second count, then I'm going to push back up slow and controlled, or I'm going to do it opposite. I'm going to start at the bottom, I'm going to push and hold at the top for 3 seconds, and then push my way back down, and then push back up again. Or you could do the negatives, where you're starting at the top, you're going all the way down to the floor, then pushing up. Or you can start positives, meaning you're starting on the floor. I actually like to do positives and incorporate Supermans into it too. So I actually do like a Superman, and then I push up into a push-up, and then I come back down and I do another Superman. So I actually like to just do a combo. What's that?
Love a little combo.
Yeah.
But I like those different, I like still too as well, adding those different progressions in to your workouts regularly. Just
of course.
Because they're also going to help with the depth of your push-up. Because the thing is, especially with women, first of all, our upper body strength is not as naturally strong as men. It's just not the way that we are built. We're naturally built to have more strength in our lower body. Our lower bodies are actually stronger than men's lower bodies. So yay for us. But our
Yay.
upper bodies are not necessarily as strong. So, but this idea then causes a lot of women to shy away from even doing push-ups, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. Or maybe they're chestier and they're like, like going down and up. So it becomes this kind of thing that you think, I don't even want to try. But when you've got all these variations too, and you can, see what works for you, because the thing with push-ups that I love as well, it's a functional movement, right? A functional
Yeah.
movement means it's a movement that is going to help you in your everyday life. It's going to be
Yeah.
something that you actually are going to do. Like whenever, like for example, a shoulder raise to the side, like when are we doing that in most of our normal life? Like I'm not picking up buckets like this all day long, right?
Yeah.
That's more for aesthetics. Whereas like a push-up, there are going to be times where you have to push off the floor. You have to push away, push your kids on the swing, push the garage door closed, push a car, like whatever it is, that pushing motion, you are going to need that upper body strength. I don't know how to keep pushing a car, but
if it runs out of gas, you have to push a car. I've had to do it once.
Yeah, and that's why, like even with, like we talked about some of these progressions, you could progress to on a TRX. So that's those yellow bands where you're elevated in the air. You could be in the full horizontal position. You could be at, 45 degrees. You could push with cables, like starting to build up that strength if you don't have it. There's a lot of different variations, but it's something that I just don't want women to shy away from, because feeling like, oh, in your mind, you think you can't do it, or maybe you can't do one of the variations, then you don't do the rest of it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that it's all just about practice though too, right? Like it really just comes down to, and that comes down to like any kind of movement, because any kind of movement, like whether it's squats, whether it's push-ups, whether it's, core work, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, it's just practice. It just takes time. It's like my handstands. They take practice. They take time over and over again, replicating the same movement, and understanding the foundation and understanding the base is the first step, because once you have that and you understand it, your body feels it, then it's like, okay, you just keep practicing it until you perfect it. So, and one of the other things I did want to mention too, though, is if you are at a place where you're like, okay, well, I feel like my push-ups, like the foundation's really there and like I've got it kind of down, you can start then really playing around too with adding even other progressions, like doing uneven push-ups on like kettlebells, or adding man makers, which is like the rows with the push-ups, or adding in different weighted movements. I also like doing push-ups with like adding in like a side plank with a press, like a press up, and then coming back down to the push up, and then alternating sides. Like there are so many cool variations that you can start doing, but if you don't have that foundation, I really don't recommend starting to add in all like weighted things or anything like that, because then all you're doing is potentially causing injury or putting yourself like basically in a position where you probably won't get the results that you're looking for anyways. So everyone take a step back if you need to, look at these different things, film yourself or do it in front of a mirror, or have someone take a photo of you in your form so that you can really see what it is that you need to be doing or that you maybe want to adjust. And from there, just start checking your form every single time and just start progressing from that point.
And we've also talked before in podcasts about something that I know a lot of people, financially, they can't hire a trainer, but it is a really good investment to just even do one session to have a professional like watch you with your core movements. So like watch you, make sure you're doing your push-up properly, your squat properly, your deadlift properly, your plank properly. So because that way, then you will have that to take with you into any workout class or any program you're doing at home. So it's something that, it could cost you maybe $50 to $100. If you do it with a friend, you can share, which would be great. But that is like the kind of investment where you've got that foundation, and then it literally, like, now you know it, you can apply it for the rest of your workouts in the rest of your life.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. I remember I had a trainer that did that for me. So we evaluated all my movements, and it found out that when I squat, I actually have my left foot is like just a little bit more forward than my right. So like maybe about 2 inches. But so I have like an alignment thing going on there. And then in my shoulders, my right shoulder is a little bit higher than my left. So like everything was like, I was like off balance on both sides. And so I was like crooked on both sides, but it was just, and then I also have the same thing with glutes. Like I wasn't engaging my hamstrings or my glutes properly. They weren't firing the right way. So taking my time to really slow down the movements and feel those muscles engage. And if I don't feel them, to reset and then redo it over and over and over again until I started feeling it was key for me to actually start progressing the way that I wanted to progress. Yeah. So totally agree with you on that. All right. So thank you everyone for listening today, as always. And if this is something that excites you, like it excites us, just learning different, like educating yourself in terms of like fitness or nutrition or just learning any kind of new techniques, we'd love to have you join us. We have our upcoming fitness and nutrition expert certification program. So if you want to learn more, dive in deeper, or even become certified to help other people, join us there. It starts on September 26th. And then we also have our holistic nutrition weight loss expert program starting on October 16th. So if nutrition is what lights you up, that is definitely the program for you. Check it out at fitchicksacademy.com. And then of course, join us on all social media. We are at FitChicks Academy. And if you love this podcast, please make sure that you share. And of course, comment below. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear what progressions maybe you use in order to progress your programs, or even just what corrections you have made in terms of your push-ups in order to perfect it a little bit more. All right. That being said, thank you guys again for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.
Bye.